Absolutely thrilled to have with us on the show right now our friend from the Independent Women's Forum, Julie Gunlock, joins us. Julie, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am good. So I don't know if you saw the news yesterday. All of these stories, Washington State University, University of Tennessee, telling students, don't use these words or you will be punished.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So...
Yes, with pronunciation guides for the new words.
Yep. And at Washington State, now we haven't heard anything about the new gender pronouns, the gender-neutral pronouns at University of Tennessee. But at Washington State, apparently the president of Washington State has stepped in and has reminded these professors, you can't fail students because they use words that you don't like. You can't deduct points from students because they're using words that you find to be improper and outdated. We have a First Amendment, and you will respect that. So it's good to see that coming from the president of Washington State University. It's kind of sad that the professors have to be reminded of this, however.
Right. Yeah, I wonder how long that till he's fired. Just kidding. Yeah, he's got minutes left on that job. Yeah, you know, it is really, it's so strange. I mean, these are adults who work in an industry where we are supposed to welcome the free exchange of ideas and that the free flow of ideas, that is where we debate these things and we should encourage that. Certainly college professors should be encouraging that. But now more and more now we're seeing these sort of language, these rules about language and certain language codes, and again, this absolutely absurd rule coming out of the University of Tennessee and others, and you've started to also see a lot of these efforts are being led by feminist organizations. I mean, not this one in particular, but many of these. Safe spaces and don't say certain words and don't talk about certain things, and it all contributes to the rape culture. I mean, we're seeing a lot of that, and certain things might worry women or make them nervous, or there's certain triggers. And again, this all it really does reduce sort of the learning culture at these universities, and again, it takes away the whole purpose of education.
It does, and it replaces it with something that might rhyme with schmonoctrination. I mean, it just that should be a word, schmondoctrination.
That's a good one.
Thank you. I will say this, though. It is not all good news. Apparently, Wonder Woman lunchboxes are still banned at Washington State University.
Indeed. Thank God. Thank God.
Have we determined whether or not where this story took place? I know the story made the rounds earlier in the week, the Wonder Woman lunchbox letter from the school. I think the parent remained anonymous, but apparently the school had determined that superheroes were poor role models. They were too violent, and so the parent's child could not bring her Wonder Woman lunchbox to school anymore because it violated.
No, I don't know where that took place. I did read about it, and again. We're just raising a generation of very nervous individuals. We don't want...
Are we raising a generation, or are we being raised by a generation of very nervous individuals?
I think that's a good point, and there is some, I think that if you were to talk to Lenore, Lenore Skenazy, who runs the free range movement, free range kids movement, she would say that this goes back, certainly past this generation, or the current parenting. But I do think that parents today of young kids are very, very nervous. They're raising nervous kids. There's a study that came out just a couple weeks ago talking about how this trend, helicopter parenting, has affected children, and we're really seeing children less able to care for themselves once they leave the nest, once they go to college. I reviewed a book recently about that whole issue and about how kids are. It's called How to Raise an Adult. Great new book out, and this was a dean at a prestigious university, and she was shocked by the number of kids who are sort of less able to take care of themselves, very worried, very nervous, and sort of, a lot of this is the pressure that we put on kids, but we also, at a young age, don't let them experience anything risky. We don't allow them to be alone. We don't let them sort of go out and make choices and have to live with the consequences. It's always hovering. So I think this is an outgrowth of that, and I think then you go to college where kids, some of these kids, see things or hear things that they might find disturbing, that they might not agree with, and particularly some of these feminist organizations on campus, and the answer is to insist that these things be banned, or that certain speakers not be allowed to come onto the college campus. That's the reaction. It's to ban these things, not to hear them out and debate and talk about it and fight back. That used to be the point of college. That used to be the point of education. And now it's really to ban things and make things very safe. We don't want you to hear about any ideas that you might disagree with.
Yeah, unfortunately. It's interesting, the idea of this book of how to raise an adult. There might be another book coming out later this year, Jim Garrity and a co-author that sort of touches on these same themes. Possibly. I think it's called Heavy Lifting. It might be available for a pre-order.
Nice.
Through Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. This is actually, obviously this is a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and we talk with you about this. We talk with Lenore about this. One of the areas I've been thinking about this, Julie, there was a piece of the Washington Post today in their Post Everything blog, and it was a young man. He just graduated, I believe, from Columbia Journalism School, I believe the graduate school there, and he wrote about his experience with drinking. Because he started drinking in high school. Mom, he said, would catch him, but there were really no consequences until after his first DUI, and he spent the summer grounded, and then he went off to college on his own, and there were months of blackouts. There was eventually arrest. There was outpatient therapy. There were a lot of problems. And, part of this, I think, as I was reading this young man's story, it goes back to this culture that starts in high school, in a lot of cases, continues on in college. There's all this talk, about the concern about the binge drinking on college campuses. We have so many protective parents, for instance, who, want to make sure that our kids are never out of our sight. They can't play in the front yard or the backyard. And yet, when they get a little bit older, we're not really paying any attention, and we're certainly not helping them understand, there will be a day when you're going to be out on your own, and you're going to be able to do really stupid things. How do you teach your kids not to do the stupid things that other people will perhaps encourage them to do, and that other young adults will be doing? And I think part of this is actually being able to teach your kids these lessons so that the first time they're exposed to alcohol, they don't immediately decide, I'm going to get as just drunk as I possibly can and see what happens. In some ways we're really coddling our children. In other ways, we are just sort of throwing them to the wolves. And it's a really weird dichotomy.
Well, we've also delayed growing up. Honestly, there's a new article. Actually, I'm not sure if it's on Acculturated, but I just glanced over it. And it was about how kids are increasingly deciding to skip getting a summer job and instead just, hanging out at the pool or hanging out at home or just not earning money. And, I remember I couldn't wait to get my first job. I worked in fast food. I worked at a video store for the younger people in the audience. We used to rent videos instead of streaming on our computers. And so I worked at a video store. I worked in a deli. I feel like I had every, sort of food job there was possible. And I got a worker's permit at 15, and then I had jobs. I had, like neighborhood jobs around. I babysat before that. And now I think fewer and fewer kids are doing that and sort of earning their own money. And instead, parents sort of give out money. And I think that jobs I think they lead to, I mean, this is another way in which kids learn responsibility. They understand decision making, and really they have to be responsible for this job.
Absolutely. Listen, I've got to exercise some time management skills that I learned in my first
Anyway,
job. It's all right.
yeah.
We're almost out of time. Julie, thank you so much. We'll talk again soon.